Hey guys, it's ExandShadow, and welcome back to more LostWinds, because now we're taking on the sequel, LostWinds Winter of the Melodias. Yeah, remember when I said that we'd never see the Melodias again back when I did LostWinds? I lied. Yeah, this game's all about them. You know, you can't just put the name of a random race, species, tribe of people, and then just not expand on that, right? So anyway, LostWinds Winter of the Melodias is basically a better version of LostWinds. It's just a much better game. Every aspect of LostWinds that was good is enhanced in this sequel, and that's just basically what a sequel should be. Anyway, here we're not controlling Toku. Apparently we're controlling some green thingy called Riverin. As you'll notice, the little symbol that's our cursor is not actually Enro right now. So yeah, we are taking control of a completely different character. Don't worry, we're still playing as Toku and Enro for the majority of the game. But this is just some sort of intro sequence, which I think works pretty well. Especially when we get to the end and we see some parallels to it. But anyway, Riverin, we don't really know anything about his personality because he's been struck with silent protagonist syndrome. However, if you press the Z button, he can sing, and singing works very similarly to the echo balls that we saw in LostWinds 1. I think it's implied that this note or singing or whatever pitch that they're doing has some sort of magic powers. Like, for example, it'll make this statue over here become significantly less sleepy to the point when it actually starts making noise itself. Right about now. There we go. Remember that for later. That does actually become slightly important. I don't know if LostWinds 2 has a significantly different game engine than LostWinds 1. I think it's relatively the same amount of, relatively the same engine. I don't think they made too many tweaks to it. But overall, I think that the art design is just a lot better refined in LostWinds Winter of the Melodias. I'm more likely than not just going to call it LostWinds 2, just because that's easier to say, just for the record. But I think that the art style is refined here, because things look... Well, I think the blockiness is just part of the art style, but things look a lot more... everything seems a lot more deliberate in its design, and I just really like that. The game has several major improvements over the first game that I want to talk about, but I don't want to spoil because we haven't actually gotten to them yet. Okay, so anyway, if you... Oh, crap! Glorbs. Huh, wonder why they're here. Oh, well, probably no big deal. Let's just go back. Yeah. Not a big deal at all. Oh, shit, this looks familiar. Yeah, huh. I wonder what happened last time we fell into a waterfall-like area at the beginning of a game. Oh, look at that! A magical cancer rock! Surely this could not go wrong at all. See, I knew that cancer rocks were nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble. Anyway, yeah, the beginning of this game is was basically supposed to be a giant parallel to the beginning of LostWinds 1, only instead of Toku finding a supposedly good cancer rock, Riverin there found an evil one. And, shit. Yes, we don't get the Drumbella cape in this game. Okay, if there's one thing I have to complain about in this beginning scene, it's that they didn't, for whatever reason, keep all of the model components from these original characters. So, while the models are still coded to move around if you brush and roll over Dio or Notea here, they'll just sort of jitter unnaturally, as opposed to how they sort of went like whoa when you gusted them in the first game. It's not a major complaint, since these characters are really only in the game for the first minute anyway, so no huge deal. Anyway, as you saw there, when Toku fell out of that tree, the Drumbella cape was broken. That's because if you played LostWinds 1, the Drumbella cape was basically a game-breaking item that allowed you to get anywhere you wanted in the entire game. You could go higher than you could jump, etc., etc. However, that is the only ability from the first game that we do not have in the second game. We can gust just as much as we could in the first game. We can still slipstream. We can still vortex. We basically start off with a full arsenal, and I can understand them getting rid of the Drumbella cape because it's supposed to be an end game. Breaker that just allows us to basically fuck around and have fun. This is how I think sequels should do it. I don't care for sequels that just hand-wave away our abilities from previous games, or even worse, I hate sequels that make it so that we don't have our abilities for no good reason. Super Metroid. But yeah, Toku in this game is not only just as mobile and versatile as he was in LostWinds 1, he's even more, because now we have other abilities, like, for example, we can swim now. Swimming works very similarly to other games. You just move around with the control stick, and if you run out of air, you start taking damage. But yeah, I love having all of my abilities. That's just one thing about games like this that I think all games should do. If it's a sequel, build upon the abilities you've already established, and then add new ones. You know, it's not that hard. And even more than that, I really do love this beginning section with a Magmok here. First off, not only do we establish that, yes, Magmok is a cool dude, and, you know, there was a reason to saving him in the first place, but also, this is just a fun section to go through. It focuses exclusively on moving around with the wind abilities, which is honestly the best part of LostWinds, you know, fucking around with the wind abilities. If they had made this game a completely linear experience, I think that if they were able to keep the pace up as much as they did during this first section, it would be a lot of fun. But yeah, now we get to the whole winter aspect of the game, and oh my gosh, this game's winter aesthetic is beautiful. In case you don't know, I come from the Northeast, Boston specifically, so yeah, we get a lot of snowy winters here. And not only does this game, and I'm not really a huge fan of winter, because, you know, it's cold and I hate the cold, but this game does manage to capture the essence of winter really, really great, because not only is it just sort of a pretty looking time of the year, because, you know, the snow and the ice and stuff, but it's also a very dangerous time of the year, because, you know, snow and ice, that shit is deadly. So, yeah, I think that the game does really manage to match both the beauty of winter and the harshness of it at the same time, and I just love it. I mean, look at the snow! It's just, it's so good. Sorry, I'm going to try to refrain from gushing as much. Anyway, now that we're in the cold, we've got a new gameplay mechanic here. Basically, Toku is wearing summer clothing. That stupid hat doesn't do very well for installation, I'm afraid. So, basically, we can only stay a certain amount of time in the out in the elements before we start to freeze. So we'll have to get close to a torch in order to warm ourselves up. I actually really do like this mechanic, because not only does it keep us on pretty much a set path, which I think is important for the beginning of the game, because we need to establish where all the areas are, and being linear is the best way to do that, but also it drives home sort of the harshness that the areas have at this point. There's also really, really great attention to detail in this game, because the longer you stay out in the cold, the paler Toku's face will get. It starts off just sort of the normal tannish white color that it was in LostWinds 1, but the longer you stay out in the cold, it becomes whiter and whiter, and eventually it'll become blue. I just love that attention to detail. This game is all about the details, and it does it really, really well. Another thing that I can definitely say that LostWinds did better than LostWinds Winter the Melodia did better than LostWinds 1 is writing. This is Smith, and the game does a much better job at making the characters seem fleshed out than LostWinds 1 did. Because here, Smith is supposed to be just sort of this blunt, I don't want to say jackass, but he's very sort of a down-to-earth, blunt kind of guy, and the writing gets that across very, very well here. The characters seem much more fleshed out than they do in LostWinds 1, which is just a major improvement, because if there's one thing that I think that LostWinds could have done better on is world building, and LostWinds 2 does a much better job on world building. It's just a much better game overall. I'm sure a couple of times throughout the game already you've seen there was a map feature. This was added in LostWinds Winter of the Melodias, and it was actually brought back for LostWinds 1 if you play the iOS version. The map basically works similarly to Metroid Zero Mission, in that it tells you where you need to go, but it doesn't specify how exactly you are supposed to get there. I really like this approach, because if there's one thing about LostWinds 1 that I didn't like, is that it was occasionally very easy to get lost. And, well, at least on the first time. Subsequent playthroughs it wasn't as easy to get lost, but Later on, but the first time it was kind of easy to get lost. So the map pretty much eliminates all confusion, and I think that all Metroidvania games should have a map. It's just part of the deal, you know? Anyway, Smith gave us a thingy that allows us to light these little torches. They use it for some creative puzzles, but basically they did that so that you had to talk to Smith before going off further onto the game. No huge deal. Anyway, remember that little bear statue for later. What was next to the bear statue was actually a message from Magdi's journal. If you remember at the very beginning, Notea said something about finding a page of Magdi's journal. Magdi was our mother, as established in LostWinds 1, and she's apparently lost in the wilderness, and we're going to try to find her. First off, another thing that LostWinds 2 does better than LostWinds 1. We have a goal! Yes, we don't. It's not something vague like, oh, Balasar's out there. Okay, now what? I don't know. We actually have a goal. Magdi is lost, and we are going to go and find her. Thank you, game. I really, really appreciate just the simple having a set goal that we're supposed to do. You know, it's the little things in games that let us that make them just better experiences overall. Anyway, the Melodias statues are back from LostWinds 1, and I think I mentioned this in the first Let's Play, but now they actually have a purpose. If you remember from the title screen, there was a little blacked out tab that said Secrets. Basically, every time you get two Melodias statues, another one of those secret tabs open. Okay, hold on, let me rephrase that. Every time you get two Melodias statues, a little question mark on the Secrets tab will be revealed. And then it'll show a character bio from one of the characters in the game, like Toku, I think there's one for Dio, etc., etc. This is, I think, again, better than LostWinds 1, because the game gives you a motivation to find these things. Also, on the map screen, on the map screen, it tells you how many Melodias statues are left in each specific area, which makes finding them a lot less of a hassle. Because now, if you're missing 23 out of 24, you know exactly where the 24th one is. Actually, I think there's like 42, but whatever. You know where if you're missing one, you can find out pretty easily where that last one is, and then finding it is pretty much just a matter of looking for it within that area. The game directs you enough to the point where you know what to do, but it still leaves the exploration up to you, and I love games that do that. But basically, the game's structure is basically an enhanced version of LostWinds 1. A lot of the mechanics from LostWinds 1 that you saw before are still here. Like, for example, those little doors there with the little crystal on it would still be open with an echo ball if I had it. The mushrooms you still gust down in order to make them bounce, you know. The game, I guess, sort of assumes that you've played LostWinds 1 because, especially at the beginning, a lot of the things that the game expects you to do, like slipstreaming to open up vine doors and stuff like that, the game sort of assumes that you already know how to do that, and I guess that's with good reason. LostWinds 2 might be better than LostWinds 1, but I still think that playing LostWinds 1 is a good way to prepare yourself for LostWinds 2. LostWinds 2, don't get me wrong, is the better game, but I still recommend playing both. I mean, if you only had to play one or the other, I would recommend LostWinds 1, but LostWinds 2, sorry. If you only had to play one or the other, I would play LostWinds 2. Sorry, LostWinds 2 is better than LostWinds 1. Please, remember that. But yeah, man, this game is just so good. Here we see a piece of Magdi's journal and also Magdi's balloon. You do not get Magdi's journal in sequential order. Like, for example, the first part of the journal that we got was actually entry 8. But the one we got there was 3, and I don't even know if we found 1 yet. So yeah, you're sort of figuring out Magdi's story in bits and pieces, which I do sort of like. You know, if there's one thing to keep the interest up in a game, it's just to give players well, actually in any sort of fiction, giving the players just enough to figure out what's going on, but still leaving a lot of things open is a great way to keep them interested in what's going on. Anyway, here we actually have a new form of enemy, and I'm going to talk about why I like the enemies in this game better than the first game next time. But basically, these are fire globes. If you sort of frantically slipstream them, they will become normal globes. But yeah, the enemy fighting in this game is just a lot more dynamic from the first game, but I'll talk about that more next time. Anyway, when we next come up, we'll actually start to visit the city of the Melodias. I'm ExandShadow, and I'll see you guys later.